thanks everyone for coming out tonight. My name is Chris Furnari. I am the editor of Brewbound.com, an industry trade publication for the craft beer space published by BevNet. And we have actually a couple cameras here behind you guys tonight. It's actually being live streamed out across the web. I don't know how many people are tuning in, and actually a newsletter just went out notifying people that the live stream is now live. So this thing will be vibrating for a while. That being said, if any of you guys are on your smartphones throughout the night, feel free to ask questions of our panelists, who I'll introduce in a moment, using the hashtag BrewTalks. And I'll get that up here on my phone, and I can try my best to get those questions in as they roll in. And then we'll have some time afterwards for audience questions. So I'll spend a brief moment just introducing this concept. BrewTalks is a concept that we're sort of proving out still, being able to take cool discussions like this around the country, bring it in a really awesome craft beer bar. And tonight, for our live stream viewers at home, we're in Chicago at the Hopleaf, a fine establishment. And if you guys haven't gotten beers yet, we have a bar right here. If not, there's, I think, like 50 or 60 taps downstairs. So definitely enjoy those. And tonight's discussion, we're going to talk about how craft brewers and distributors can better enhance their relationships and sort of work together instead of against each other to build a brand. Chicago's one of those markets that we've been paying close attention to. Obviously, we have Gavin over here from Deschutes, one of the newer brands in the market, and Chad to my right here from Oskar Blues that entered the market last year. And of course, sitting in the middle is Dave Kahle, who's with Wirtz Beverage, one of the new craft distributor players, obviously well known for wine and spirits, but just recently getting into craft beer here in Illinois. So these guys, I'll let them sort of spend a minute or two each introducing themselves and talking about what their roles are, and then we'll kind of get started. Gavin?
My name is Gavin Stoub. I'm the Illinois market manager for Deschutes Brewery. Joined on with the launch in January. So I manage the entire market along with Wirtz Beverage. So I'm the liaison between Deschutes and Wirtz Beverage.
Dave Kahle. I have a sort of undefined job title and role right now. It's always changing every day, but I'm the craft beer manager. So that allows me to cover a lot of ground. But I do a lot of education within the company, outside of the company. We have about 1,000 employees in Illinois. So I've been converting 1,000 people to craft beer at one time, which is pretty cool. And then work with the suppliers or breweries. Hate calling them suppliers, but the breweries. And looking at new breweries to pick up. And then I also come out to the Hopleaf and try to talk Drew and Michael into buying some beer. So.
Right on. I'm Chad Wulff. Work for Oskar Blues Brewery currently. I'm a Chicago rep here in the market. Here to build a brand. I've been bouncing around the Chicago craft beer scene for about maybe 13, 14 years now. Started with Oskar Blues about 6-8 weeks ago. Just been having fun, getting out there, working closely with our distributor, Windy City, and again, trying to build that Oskar Blues brand and keep quality, fresh beer in the market.
Chad, you were with Windy City prior to joining Oskar Blues, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Awesome.
Correct.
All right, well, I kind of wanted to kick this thing off with Dave. Being that you guys sort of just are dipping your toes into the craft beer scene at Wirtz Beverage, sort of wanted to find out and pick your brain, what is Wirtz Beverage looking for in a craft brand? And then, maybe, Chad, you can sort of draw on some of your experience from Windy City and we can kind of compare the two.
Yeah. So we have like more or less a 10-point checklist kind of, but it's not all evenly weighted. Obviously, the number one thing you're looking for is quality, you want really good beer. With this market getting fairly saturated, there are a lot of great brands out there, and you can't just be good, you have to be exceptional. So quality is really the first thing you're looking at. We look at a lot of other things like values of the company, whether we can get along with these people, whether they're thinking the same way we are, whether they're long-term minded. We look at their footprint and their growth rate. We've seen a lot of breweries pull out of markets, and we'd hate to do a lot of footwork for a brand and then have them pull out of our market. So we want to make sure that their growth trajectory is going to work for what their goals are. We look at what else, Chad? What am I looking? What else do we look at?
Well, in my experience with Windy City, we were a craft distributor. We weren't a larger house that had a craft segment. It was purely craft along with some imports. We as a team would be presented beers, and we decided as a team whether that was something that we could bring into the market and sell. If we already had that product, that style in the book, why add? We're not brand collectors. We want to bring something unique and new and exciting, and that would fit a niche in the market. That was my general experience in the 3.5 years that I was at Windy City. Yeah.
Sure, and I mean, there's so many brands coming online now, and I think it's like 2,400 some odd breweries. I mean, a lot of those are probably brew pubs, but there's another 1,200 or so looking to launch, or breweries in planning, as the Brewers Association terms it. It's got to be getting a lot harder to fill those niches. I mean, am I right?
For sure. I mean, I think it's important to look at those numbers and think of them realistically. If you've got 2,400 breweries, half of them are brew pubs. A brew pub can almost always survive on its own. They sell directly to the customer with the markup. They can always do well. And then a huge percentage of the other ones are nano breweries. I think the average production of a craft brewery in the U.S. is 500 barrels a year. I mean, that's nothing. So that means there's a whole lot of nano breweries going on out there. Now, I think that for years everyone said, if you don't have a 15-barrel system or bigger, you're not going to make money. There's no way to make money. But I think that we're seeing brands like The Brewery or Pipeworks, that are coming out and making small quantities but selling in large format. So that large format allows you to sell at a higher price point and makes it a viable business. But I certainly think that the top breweries, the Deschutes and Oskar Blues of the world, are going to start to separate a little bit from the pack. I think the top, I think 80% of the beer made is brewed by the top 100 breweries or something. So I think that'll continue the trend, and the majority of the craft beer will be made by a few breweries. So those middle ground breweries that are out of region are going to be the ones that probably struggle a little bit if they don't gain a foothold locally.
And those are a lot of the breweries that are looking to sort of broaden their distribution footprints. At least from what we can tell, we've seen a lot of press releases come through the wire of mid-sized breweries, barely sort of regional breweries, looking for new markets or sending their beer all over the country. So it's definitely something we're following. Now, on the flip side of that, there's brands like Deschutes that are in the top 5 in terms of volume. So Gavin, maybe you can sort of touch on anything that in your time with Deschutes as to why Deschutes keyed in on Chicago as a craft-centric market that they needed to be in, even having to travel, having the beer have to travel from Bend.
Right. Well, Chicago has become a very beer-centric market overall. So that is what attracted us to Chicago. It's a big market where you can sell a lot of beer, and there's opportunity. There's still a lot of opportunity in Chicago. So
Sure.
that's the main reason.
And there's definitely a good opportunity with Wirtz Beverage, who, you know, I mean, you guys were, correct me if I'm wrong, weren't you their first craft beer brand?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And that's a pretty big score for Wirtz, landing a top 5 brewery as their first craft beer brand. That's, you know, how'd you guys pull that off?
Well, I'll tell you that just bluntly that none of the 3 of us were in our current positions when that transaction went down, but so I wasn't there directly, but you know, they like the fact that we have an entire state solution. We deliver to the entire state of Illinois. I think that there's certain breweries I've heard, you know, have 19 different distributors they'll work with for the entire state. I mean, if you're a state manager, a regional manager, to manage 19 different distributors has got to be a pain in the ass, really. And you know, so being a one-stop shop is one big bonus.
That's definitely a benefit. The main reason, though, is sharing those core values that Deschutes has, and one of those is you know, honoring the customer and being able to give back, you know, and delivering quality, and that's a core value that Wirtz has throughout their whole portfolio, not just what they exude to us. So it's those core values that we have at Deschutes that equal to what David's, you know, at Wirtz has. So
Sure, and I mean, every distributor is going to have their checklist of things that they're looking for in a craft beer brand, and vice versa. So Chad and Gavin, maybe talk about some of the things that Oskar Blues and Deschutes looks for, to your knowledge, in a distributor when they're looking to select a new distribution partner. What's on a craft brewer's checklist of, you know, a Deschutes or an Oskar Blues type caliber of brewer?
Definitely passionate sales team. You know, we want to be able to work as closely as we can with our Windy City reps to, you know, help us get into the market, make introductions. That's, you know, that's key. Having an open communication with our distributor, keeping those lines flowing, and relaying information to each other. You know, that's top priority. Yeah.
definitely being transparent with and again, those core values we talked about, that's key, the most important for us. But, you know, getting back to, you know, again, searching for words that has those core values.
Sure. Now, transparency is an interesting topic and sort of the basis of this whole conversation tonight, I guess, in many ways. Ways that the craft brewer can really enhance that relationship. And I think, you know, even taking a step back and looking at that first interaction with a brand, or maybe even that first meeting. I mean, maybe the first interaction is just a couple of samples sent to somebody's desk. So Dave, what should craft brewers know before they make that first step and pick up the phone and call you and pitch their brand, or send their samples, or even walk into that, you know, all-important first meeting?
It's a great question. They really should know what they are as a company. They should have a business plan. They should know what their expectations are for, you know, the rest of this year, for the next year, for probably a 5-year plan. You know, they really, a lot of people come in and they don't really have much of a plan. They're, you know, and the ones that are easy to avoid are the ones that, you know, some guy's a home brewer for a little bit, but works in, you know, some downtown corporation and says, you know, I want to quit this job and become a, you know, pro brewer and start this company, and they end up contract brewing, and, you know, they got this great idea, and, you know, these are the ones that probably aren't going to be successful in this marketplace.
Is that just a Chicago thing, or do you think
that's happening all over the place? I mean, that's just standard these days. You go to CBC, I don't know how many of you were at Craft Brewers Conference, but if you poke your head into the room with the Start Your Own Brewery seminars, it's a lot of people who you can tell have not been in the beer business. You know, you can just look at them and know. It's true. So they really have to understand, excuse me, what what the business is, what their goals are, have realistic expectations, and then ultimately they have to make great beer and present that to us. So
send fresh samples.
Very good, very good, excellent.
Hands down,
Yeah.
send the freshest beer you can to that distributor.
Quality.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many breweries we've seen come across the table that you just, with a Windy City team being, certified Cicerone and a lot of talent, a lot of, talented palates in the room, and getting product that's oxidized or just old, and you had your shot and you blew it, Monica. That's his catchphrase, so gotta give him props. But yeah, send fresh samples. Know how many cases you want to sell in that market. Have a good idea of how much beer you can produce and what you can give to said market, and send fresh samples.
Maybe they should send some beer to BTI and have it judged for them, because
that's a great.
We got a couple
great
people in the house from BTI, but it is a good way to get some feedback. I just tried some beer the other day that someone sent unsolicited to us, and it was an exercise in off flavors. It was wonderful. I loved to find some of these things where I was like, wow, I've seen these in spiking kits, but I've never found this in beer before. This is awesome.
And these are beer brands that are being sold somewhere.
Somewhere, yep. And the tricky part is going back to them and saying, we're not interested in the brand right now, but I can help you out in quality control, if you're willing to listen.
Some constructive criticism.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna fail if you've got these contamination issues.
Is that something that Wirtz does or makes a priority when you think you might have a brand on your hands that if they just improve the quality of their beer a little bit, you might be willing to take them on? Will you work with them?
We haven't gotten to that point yet. It's still pretty new in the process, but we will definitely focus on local breweries, local and regional breweries. We'd love to help and support and grow. Even if they don't come to us, I'm going to support local breweries. And I do work with a lot of people on quality control, QA/QC, sensory panel work. And I'm happy to sit on anybody's sensory panel and be blunt with them. We haven't really had a situation yet that I can think of where I've gone, wow, these are great guys, this concept's amazing, but the beer's just not quite right. Let's help them fix it. But I don't doubt that'll happen at some point.
What about at Windy City when you were there, Chad? Did you guys do any of that or dabble in that a little bit?
No, it was more kind of based on what I mentioned previously. It was when the brewery was approaching us, the team was deciding, using their skill set, collectively, we would decide if there was a place for the product in the book, if we really enjoyed the liquid and we thought that the whole package could sell, well, yeah, we would fight to, bring them on, or all kind of vote, be like, yeah, we as a team can move this product. We know our accounts, we know our buyers, we know who to talk to and where to place these types of beers.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, so quality of beer is good. Branding's there, fills a niche in the portfolio. You guys sign a brand. Take me through the launch process now. How do you get that brand to market and get people paying attention to a brand new company that hasn't seen distribution in this case, Chicago? And maybe, Gavin, you can step in here and talk about how you guys did it with Deschutes.
One of the bigger things, we had a very large launch for Chicago. Was very successful, and that was keying in on some good players. But we have very successful events brought out by our marketing team. And one of those events is our Beerlesque show, which was our kind of finale for the week. And it was extremely successful. It's something different and unique that we brought to the market. And people were really, I don't want to say turned on about it, but very interested.
Feel free to use any puns you
Made them
want.
very thirsty.
It was very fun. It was a very fun event. And then another thing we're going to be doing in August is our base camp. And base camp is centered around Mirror Pond, which is our flagship. So it focuses in on our flagship beer, and it celebrates that beer culture. And that's one of the, again, getting back to the core values of Deschutes, is celebrating, the craft culture. So those are some of the more, unique events, I think, is one of the bigger things that we are doing. And obviously getting with Wirtz, which has a very wide span to get some pretty good distribution.
You're talking to two pretty big breweries right here, and they both have a lot of staff, and they both have a lot of people involved in marketing, and you have to think of this in versus some of the small breweries I know that are in here that don't have a sales team like that, don't have a marketing department. There were probably 50 people that came in from Deschutes for that week of actually about 2 weeks of launch events. Not many breweries have that capability. I know Oskar Blues had an amazing launch in Chicago as well, and so it's not always apples to apples, but.
So how do you work with the smaller brands that might not have those resources? What resources are you going to put forth to sort of aid them in that launch process?
The good thing is a smaller brand doesn't necessarily have to be in every account. Deschutes and Oskar Blues need to be in every account, and they could be in every account. But some of the breweries that produce 3,000 barrels, 4,000 barrels, and maybe aren't even in this market, or they're not even local potentially. They don't have to be in 1,000 accounts. They can be in you can go surgically and say, all right, we're going to hit these 40 accounts, make sure they maintain handles in those accounts, that kind of thing. Build up a relationship with the right account. So I think it's important to vet that stuff out early on and work with those accounts and figure out which ones, what style place they like to be in, what's worked for them, that sort of thing.
Chad, you probably saw it from both sides, right?
Well, yeah, I was working with Windy City when Oskar Blues launched, and it was a great launch. We did have a lot of support from marketing at Oskar Blues, and we had a handful of great people from the brewery in town. A lot of the reps with Windy City went out to their accounts and got those events rolling. Talked to. There's a lot of excitement about the brand coming to the market from the get-go. So a lot of it was, talking to, the strong relationship accounts that that you had, and pitching in, let's launch this properly, and let's do our best to keep the momentum going of the brewery after the launch as well. It's kind of I would say rep by rep, is how most events were set up. Of course, some were, initiated by managers at Windy City, but a lot of it was done by the passion between the sales rep at Windy City and the strong accounts. Yeah.
So you touched on something there, keeping the momentum going.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to come into a market if you're Deschutes or Oskar Blues and you're in demand, and send me that press release of most successful launch in Windy City history, or Deschutes moves X amount of cases in first 2 months. But how do you keep the momentum going beyond that initial pull through from the consumer? You don't have the support of the 50 people that came in from Deschutes. You don't have the support of all these Beerlesque launch events. So what's going to keep that tap handle on? What's going to keep the beers on the shelf and keep them going through, keep them cycling through?
Education, support, staff trainings are imperative. Having a name to the face, I want to be in front of all of my supportive accounts as much as I can to remind them that I'm there to support them. I was fortunate enough to spend some time with Chris Katechis, who's Dale Katechis' brother. He's leads sales in Denver during the Chicago launch, and that was a lot of our conversation in the car between accounts. It's like, man, this is awesome. It's a huge launch. We're selling a lot of beer. People are really excited. How do we keep this going? We're looking at each other like, and I thought he was going to give me the answer. Like, this is great, man. I got Chris right here. He's going to tell me. I'm going to take it to the street. But we just went back and forth, and kind of what we came up with was just that drive to be in front of your people, to educate your consumer, to keep pushing and going out there. I'm spending a lot of time now doing hand sells and off-prem, trying to reach, a different, not a different audience, but, that extension of the craft audience, because the light is on and burning brightly for the masses right now, and we have to continue to educate them, continue to get the beer in to get the liquid in their mouth. That's, in my experience, that's how you do it. You just keep plugging away, keep those promos going, get those beer of the months, support your accounts, show them the love,
One account a day, right?
Maybe about 3. No. You hit as many as you can. A good dozen.
One new account a day.
Well, yeah, you definitely want to get. Yeah, you want to get some new placements every day. The days that you don't, it really it bites. But you wake up, you look at yourself in the mirror, and I love what I do. I sell beer. I talk about beer every day. So yeah, you go out and you get up and you do it again.
I think staying relevant is another key aspect to staying relevant and to be able to sell beer consistently, and the relationships to reiterate what he was saying. So.
Yeah, relationships are key.
Speaking of relationships, Dave, how often do you pick up the phone and talk to Gavin on a weekly basis?
Probably every 10 minutes. No. I was gonna to back up the other thought. Obviously, I think all the stuff these guys said is good. But one thing that we've done sort of strategically to maintain relevance is, all these breweries come out and they have 50 SKUs, maybe. There are a lot of different brands come out from these breweries. So, starting out with Deschutes, we just came out with four different beers, and they have many others in the arsenal. So when you start putting in, seasonals, and then adding in some of the new, we just launched Inversion IPA. So you keep adding new products to the market, and that also maintains some level of relevance. Instead of coming out here, we've got 25 beers on the shelf right now. You know.
That seems like you guys, took a very strategic approach to the launch and the rollout phase. I mean, are there specific launch plans for each craft brand that you guys take on, or is it something that you follow a basic format for all of them, or does each brand get its own unique sort of spin?
Every brewery is different, so yeah, I think they all have to have a different approach. Whether they've got, whether they're local or not. We work with a brewery called Greenbush out of Sawyer, Michigan, and they, they're in town a lot, so it's easy to work with people who are regional or local, who are out on the streets themselves. We're launching Ballast Point from San Diego soon, and those guys are probably not going to be in the marketplace very often. Good thing is they make fantastic beer, and they're a well-known brewery. So every one of them is going to be different. Some of them don't necessarily need to have 4 events a night for a couple weeks. Some like that method. It works. Again, I think that goes back to whether you feel like you need to be in 1,000 accounts or whether you need to be in 100 accounts, or however the numbers work out for you.
Have you guys laid out a thought process or a plan of attack for Ballast Point yet?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say, but we're having some. One thing that's great about our warehouse is we have a big room we call the Alchemy Room. It's a big showcase space for the community to come in, and we're going to have the owners of Ballast Point come in and talk to people in the community, introduce their beers to them. Then we'll be doing some launch events coinciding with Chicago Craft Beer Week when we launch them in May. So the luck of being in, launching them right around Chicago Craft Beer Week is an advantage. So we'll also be introducing them at Beer Under Glass at Garfield Park, some of those places. So